Hey everybody, welcome to my 10,000 subscriber Q&A video. 10,000 subscribers, that's something, isn't it? I've honestly started this channel a long time ago, and I've done it off and on for a number of years, and yeah, when I started it, I hoped that maybe like 5 or 10 people might watch. I had no expectation of anyone giving a shit about what I have to say about film or anything else. But yeah, it just kind of grew and grew, and here we are. So I think that's pretty cool. I've gotten quite a few questions over the last couple of days on social media, and I will say that a lot of the questions that I did get, I have answered before in previous videos. So if you didn't hear your question answered, it's very possible that I may have answered it in a previous Q&A from a while back. And I'll just say I honestly kind of just grabbed a bunch of questions and put them in a document here. So I really haven't looked at them that closely. This is going to be extremely off the cuff. So I apologize if I sound incoherent through any of this. But I'll start with the first question. This is Java from Twitter. And they ask, what are your hobbies apart from the cinema? And yeah, we all have hobbies, right? I have a lot of hobbies that I've carried all the way through my life. You tend to do things, you know, in terms of hobby that you're good at. And a lot of my hobbies are more creative in nature. Like when I was a kid, I was very creative, an artist, and you know, I still draw, not nearly as much as I wish I could, but I do whenever I'm compelled to do it, and any time that I just need that release, and it's quite therapeutic. I also love to write. You know, that's a big thing of mine, especially when I'm really emotionally overwhelmed. I like to sing. You know, I'm not, honestly, if you follow me on Instagram or Twitter or anything like that, I think you get a good sense of what a lot of my hobbies are, because like, you know, if I draw a picture, I tend to post it on Instagram. Or if I sing a song, I'll post a little bit of it on Instagram. But yeah, those things just, they're good ways of expression. I used to be a dancer, and sometimes you just need to dance. So those are all kind of hobbies that I have. Ones that I do maybe more frequently now would be photography. I love photography. I think that it's very important for somebody like me because, you know, it helps you to look at the world, be more observant about people, more observant about things. And it allows you to see beauty in things you normally wouldn't. And I just think that's a really beautiful thing, and it helps keep me going. It helps dull my hatred. And I just love being outside. Being outside makes me happier than almost anything else in the world. I love hiking out in the woods. That's my happy place. So that's a big hobby of mine. So if I can do that and take pictures, that's a good day. Brandon White from Twitter asks, are there any reviews you've done that since then you've rewatched the film and had a change of heart? That's a good question. I'm sure that I have. I don't go back and watch a lot of my old videos. I do that on purpose because it's embarrassing. And I'm sure that there are a lot of reviews from years ago that I could go back to and watch and completely disagree with myself. I'm sure the majority of them I might disagree with myself on. But in terms of ones that I've done maybe in the last couple of years, because those are ones that are more fresh in my mind, I guess. When I read that question, the first thing I thought of was La La Land. When I reviewed that originally, I gave it a glowing review. And you can understand why. Because of the person that I am. I am, you know, a huge musical purist and kind of an expert on like MGM, RKO era musicals from that period. And I felt like Damien Chazelle captured that extremely well. The aesthetic, the detail, everything about it was wonderful. And it is a well done film for sure. But I don't think it holds up as well as I thought it might. It's just not very compelling in any sort of deep sense. Like, it's not Umbrellas of Cherbourg. And I know that in a lot of ways it's trying to be that, but it lacks a lot of the poignancy, a lot of the melancholy of that film. And I don't find the love story particularly compelling. I don't find the main characters particularly compelling. And that's kind of a problem. So that is kind of what keeps me from loving La La Land as much as I did the first time. So yeah, if I redid that review, it would be very different. Oh, and another one. I was visiting my parents recently, and I was watching TV because I was bored, and The Beguiled was on. The film by Sofia Coppola. I think that came out like last summer. Look, I really like the original film, the Clint Eastwood version, and I'd love to do like a comparison analysis of some sort, but I was tough on that movie when it came out, but I watched it again and I hated it so much more. Like, I wanted to go back and review it and be like, no, I was way too easy on it. There is so much that offends me and pisses me off about this remake, this particular version, that, oh, yeah, it got to me. But yeah, those are some examples, but I'm sure there are so many more that I'm not even considering there. Let's see. Paul Dean from Twitter, I think that's how you say it, asks who my favorite film critics are. And I'm assuming you mean like actual critics, people that actually write for publications, journalists, because I don't really watch any YouTube reviewers on the internet, on YouTube. I kind of do that on purpose. I just don't really feel compelled to do so. I don't really feel the need to be influenced by them. I prefer to read critics because I love words and I love writers. And some of my favorites, you know, Pauline Kael is somebody that's very influential, of course, hugely influential as she was early on, 60s, 70s, and all that. She has a very strong voice, and she took film criticism to a new level, I feel like. And then you came out with like Roger Ebert, people like that who made it more accessible. But I feel like she is a far greater critic. And I also really love Ignatiy Vishnevetsky. He is somebody that I've been following probably since At the Movies, from like, God, when that came on in like 2011 or something. He was so young during that. But I just think he's an extraordinary writer, and his appreciation of cinema, and niche cinema in particular, is really astounding and something that I just really appreciate. And it's a far cry from somebody like Richard Roeper, who is so just about artifice and superficiality and about, like, you know, what's going to win Best Picture at the Oscars. That is so uninteresting to me. I want to look at film critically and as an art, and that's what Ignatiy does. I look at most of the critics that I read, and I don't have to agree with them. There are some critics that I almost never agree with, but yet I find their writing to be so well done, and I wish I could write on that level, that I learn from them. I think another one would be a lot of writers for The New Yorker are pretty astounding, even if you don't agree with them. Like David Denby. I remember he retired a while back, and he's a real grump. I feel like he's very negative towards cinema, and I disagreed with him frequently, and other times I really agreed with him, but I thought he was a wonderful writer. And I think, Anthony Lane is another one that I like. He's so droll, and he's witty, has a very dark sense of humor and a real bite to his writing style. Tony Morrow asks, the Oscars and the Golden Globes have continued to serve absolutely no purpose, this is in capital letters, for movies and for actors. So why do these award shows still exist when they're both completely pointless? So I feel like that's a very pointed question, and I sense hostility, Tony. Look, I agree with you to a major extent. I don't focus on Hollywood. I don't focus on celebrities or any of that stuff in my reviews, because I find Hollywood and anything that it offers, particularly like award shows, Academy Awards and stuff like that, to be just so nauseating and insufferable and gross and just superficial. It's just this corporate machine that is manipulated and driven by the media and by politics. I mean, gosh, there's almost no difference between Hollywood and politics in Washington. I can't remember who said this. I wish I could, but somebody I saw once quoted saying that Hollywood is Washington, but just with good-looking people. And I was like, yes, that is exactly what it's like. And, you know, I really have no interest in politics, and I have no interest in Hollywood or any of their award shows. The award shows to me are the worst, though. I can't watch them because it's just a bunch of people dressing up in sparkly dresses and just like, you know, they're just kissing each other's asses, telling each other how amazing they are. And rarely are the Oscars or Golden Globes, anything like that, are they ever about true art. They're about, well, this actor's really hot right now. This person's the flavor of the month, so we're going to give them the Oscar. Or, oh, this is really topical in the media, so we're going to give this Best Picture. It's all just so fake. And like, art should not be a competition. There should not be who's the best actor, who's the best director. So all of it is just something that I morally struggle with. But I will say, I do disagree with you to a point. I don't think that the Oscars serve no purpose at all. There are maybe a few good things about it. I think that the Oscars started with the best intentions to celebrate film. It went in a very different direction that I don't like and most people don't like. But I will say that I think that it does serve a purpose for certain people. There are a lot of very talented artists out there who would never have their voices be heard if it weren't for some recognition from the Academy. Some great director that nobody knows might make some little indie film and it gets noticed by the Academy, so they propel it, and all of a sudden the media is paying attention to them. If they get one nomination, or if they're lucky, multiple nominations, and even luckier, maybe they win something, all of a sudden, you know, studios want to work with you. Studios want to help you communicate your vision, and I think that's great. So think about that. Think about all of the writers and the actors and the directors and so on and so forth that get recognized at the Oscars, that if it hadn't been for that chance, we would never see all of the work that they've produced. We'd never get to see them reach their full potential. So if you can propel somebody on that level, I think that's a good thing. So in that sense, I think that it could be a positive platform, but that is, I mean, there's a lot more negatives for me, obviously, there. I'm going to go with this next question from Gavin. He's a friend of mine that I actually met through YouTube, so that's pretty cool. And this is from Facebook. He says, "You love movies, you sing, free up dancing. Have you ever thought about acting?" Yes, of course I have. I mean, when I was a little girl, I was always forcing my brother to put on plays for my family, always. And they had to be very dramatic, and I was putting on, you know, dance performances, all of that. I was a very dramatic child, always in my own fairy tale land. I was rarely myself. I was always performing. And when I was like, you know, in middle school, high school, yeah, I was pretty active in theater. I did some performances and things like that. But I think that I was never very good at it. And I definitely didn't have the passion for it that is required. I feel like if you're going to choose that as your vocation, acting is just so full of rejection. It's really hard. I think that the only way you can achieve anything as an actor is if you live it and you breathe it, and that's all you feel like you can do, or else you'll die. I mean, that's the level that you need to be willing to work, because you're going to get beaten down over and over and over again in that particular profession. And I found that as I got older, I wanted to do other things. Like I thought, you're like, okay, acting's cool, but like, what about directing? What about writing? What about production design? All the behind the scenes stuff started to really intrigue me. So yeah, I mean, at a certain point, I enjoyed acting for a bit, but again, I don't think I was very talented at it. And there are just other things I found to be more interesting. John from Twitter says, "Hey Maggie, congrats on 10K. Apart from watching films, what are your favorite things to do for self-care? Keep up the excellent work." Thank you. You're asking the wrong person. I'm not so good with the self-care. I admit that. I am trying to be better though. It's just sometimes you get a little emotionally overwhelmed and stressed like I am at the moment. I think that it is important to do things that make you happy, do things that help you to stimulate your brain. And so a lot of the things that I mentioned about hobbies earlier, I would say are very therapeutic and good. And I think a lot of people should do them, even if you're not necessarily good at them. Just do it, try it, draw a picture, or sing a song, take some photographs, something like that. It can really help you. I used to be very big into meditation, and somewhere along the way, I kind of lost that a little bit. And lately, I've been doing it little by little, not nearly as much as I used to, because it's something you've got to be disciplined at to do on a consistent basis. But I'm trying to get back into that because, yeah, when your head is very chaotic and there's a lot going on, it feels so good to be able to train yourself to just strip it all away and focus on absolutely nothing. There's something very, very powerful, transcendent even. And you open your mind in a way that you can't in any other way, I feel like, other than if you do psychedelics or something, because they are similar, very similar. You can achieve a very psychedelic quality by meditating. So I would say that, but in terms of the things that I do for self-care on a regular basis, one is being active. I really like to run. I'm somebody that's very disciplined when it comes to that sort of thing. I do it pretty much every day after work because I feel like that's another one. It's a stress reliever. I feel like when you move and you're active, it produces endorphins. It's good for you. So I've never understood people who talk about how working out depresses them, because I am the opposite. Like I have to do it or else I feel like I'll go crazy. And I always try to do it you know, I like to merge my worlds. I like to hike and stuff like that. So if I'm going to run, ideally I want to run in a park or a field or, you know, something, a nature preserve, because it does give you that freedom. You can just let go. So all the stress and tension that you're carrying at work or whatever, you just let it go. And you have this one moment to yourself that can be really nice. And also it is like meditation. When you run enough and you get good enough and you run long enough, you start to kind of lose yourself in the repetition of the steps. So yeah, for self-care, exercise is a big one that helps boost your mood and make you feel stronger and more level-headed. Matthew from Facebook asks, who is your favorite actor turned director? That's a good question. I think you guys know the answer, or at least one of my answers would be Orson Welles. I love Orson Welles. Everybody knows that. He's one of my biggest inspirations for why I love the cinema as much as I do. And he is amazing. He did start out as an actor very, very young. He lied about his age and got in with a theater company. But people soon quickly realized that he had this vision, and he was this iconoclast of sorts, this Renaissance man who could do everything and do it better than everyone else. So yeah, he became a director, he became a writer, he became an actor. He was amazing and doing all these groundbreaking things. And I think that he did it better than most people. And I think that a lot of his films are extremely special. Even if he's just behind the camera and not directing, you can feel his presence as though he is performing in front of the camera. And that is an extraordinarily rare quality. I do have another one though. This one, I don't know if you consider it a cheat or not, because this person was an actor and they made one film on their own. So I don't know if that counts, but I'm going to count it anyway, just because I think it's so extraordinary. But Charles Laughton, he was a very famous thespian actor, a character actor back in the old days. So like he mainly got his start in film, at least in the 1930s, and worked his way through, you know, he was Quasimodo, Hunchback of Notre Dame. He was in Spartacus. It's a famous role of his as well. And yeah, he decided to make this film in the 50s called Night of the Hunter. And it's a film starring Robert Mitchum, Shelley Winters. It's a remarkable piece of work. One of the most remarkable films to come out of Hollywood, especially in that era in the 50s. There's nothing like it. It is so distinct, so auteur. And I think about 2 or 3 years ago, I watched it, I mean, I'd seen it many times before. I have the Criterion Collection, but I like to watch a movie fresh, even if I've seen it 1,000 times, if I'm intending to review it. And I did that with this movie. I had every intention of sitting down, watching it, and reviewing it soon after. And I couldn't do it. That is the one movie that I've watched and I thought, I don't know how to communicate my feelings, my thoughts about it quite yet. Now, I think maybe now I could do it. But at the time, I really struggled with it because it's got a lot of conflicting styles, and yet it works so brilliantly. Like, you know, it's very film noir and a lot of German expressionism you see. And yet there's a mysticism, like an otherworldly kind of surrealist quality that is very childlike and very beautiful to it. So yeah, it's a very, very unique work. And for that to be his only film that he ever made, and it's that spectacular, and he never made another one, it's just bizarre. It's strange. It's one of those special miracles, I feel like. And yeah, it didn't make much money at all. It was basically a flop, and he never made another film again because of that. And it happens all the time. But that's really tragic, especially for somebody like that who had such a vision. And the same with Orson Welles. You know, if I'm going to talk about actor turned directors that were amazing and really left a mark on the cinema, he is another one where he had all the power in the world at 25 years old, given complete creative control for a movie like Citizen Kane. Astounding that he was given that power. It didn't perform that well, and he never got the chance to communicate his vision the same way again. And I feel like so many of the films that he made post Citizen Kane are so much better. And I love Citizen Kane, but he was capable of so much more maturity and nuance. And he just never could communicate the vision because there were always studios and people in his ear saying, you can't do that, you can't do this, and cutting it up and ruining what he wanted to do. So those two, I think, I'm sure there are lots more that I'm leaving out, but those are the two that I'm going to focus on here, just off the top of my head. S.A. Knight asks, which decade was your favorite for the cinema and why, if it's even possible to summarize an entire decade? Yes, that's a question I get semi-frequently, and I don't think I've ever really answered it. Most people will be like, oh, well, obviously the 1970s are the best decade for movies. And I disagree with that completely. I mean, yeah, the 70s have some very cool, more mainstream pieces that came out at that time, things that were very accessible and propelled Hollywood in a certain way, in a certain direction dramatically, you know, especially like with movies by the film school brats like Scorsese and Coppola, Spielberg, all of that, and George Lucas. But yeah, those are more kind of more mainstream pieces there. I tend to like films from the 60s, or at least I find them more interesting. I like movies more that push the envelope, that really divide people and that cause controversy. And I feel like there are a lot more movies in the 60s where it splits people, and it still splits people to this day. A lot more psychedelic films, a lot more experimental films were being made. Did it always pay off? No, but that's part of the fun of it. And I feel like that was part of the fun of the 60s, was the experimentation and being less afraid to be bold and go in these directions that were so much less rigid. Yeah, of course, movies were being made like My Fair Lady and True Grit, you know, just like now. Hollywood just desperately clinging to this nostalgia, this golden age of Hollywood. But then there were all these movies in the underground that were coming up that were just so unique and cool, and those are the films that I tend to return to more. Sean Berry on Twitter asks, congrats on 10,000 subs. A couple of questions. Number one, most well-shot film noir in your opinion, and number two, your favorite Orson Welles performance. Normally, I would not answer both questions. I only answer one per person, but I'm going to answer both because they feed into each other. My answer is similar for both, but look, there are a lot of amazing film noir pieces. The cinematography in film noir is the stuff I live for, that kind of very contrasty look. And yeah, there are so many. But off the top of my head, this may be such an obvious answer and really boring, but I gotta go with Carol Reed's The Third Man from 1949, I believe. I hope I'm right there. But that's one of my favorite movies. I think it's an extraordinary piece of work, and I think just the cinematography in it is extraordinary. The way that they capture that light and shade, the shadow, the contrast, and capturing the kind of the wetness of those streets in Vienna, and the sequence at the end, that chase in the sewers is remarkable. Every shot is just so cool and so eerie, and I've definitely used that a lot in my own aesthetic, especially when I do photography and things like that. And it has something very off-kilter about it. There's definitely something quirky about it, the entire film. And that is reflected in the cinematography because there's a lot of Dutch angles, always as a kind of off balance, and not in like a Battlefield Earth sort of way, but in a way where it really makes sense. There's something not quite right going on here. And I love that film. And to answer the second question, what's your favorite Orson Welles performance? It would be in The Third Man playing Harry Lime. I could go with Falstaff or something, you know, from Chimes of Midnight, or I could go with Charles Foster Kane. I think both dramatic roles that are much more difficult than something like Harry Lime, or at least the performance of it, especially when you look at like Kane. That, I feel like his performance, Welles' performance in that is extremely underrated because we focus so much on the vision and his directing and writing and all of that. And it's like, no, he was a 25-year-old who plays a 25-year-old that ages like decades and becomes an old man, and he does it really, really well in a way that's very seamless. So I would say that that's a great performance, but there's something about his performance as Harry Lime, because it's such a star part. I think the whole movie, all they do is talk about Harry Lime and, oh, you know, Harry Lime, this, but you never see him on screen. And they build it and build it and build it and build it. And finally he comes on screen in that iconic shot with a light coming in on his face from the window. And it's so wonderful. And you think, well, the scene where he finally is revealed and he gets to speak for the first time, you need somebody who can match that buildup. You need somebody with charisma. And Welles has more charisma than almost anybody. And that scene on the Ferris wheel with Joseph Cotten that they have is, oh my God. Oh, it's one of my favorite scenes in anything. It is so good. And Wells, he's so, like he's so conniving, so deviant, and like, yet there's such charm to him. And like, he does everything. Like, he'll say something really brutal, but then just kind of brush it off or wink at you in a certain way. His charm is extraordinary, and his wit, that cuckoo clock speech is so wonderful. And that's really his only scene in the movie. Like, yeah, he's in the movie beyond that, but not really speaking or anything like that. And yet the times when he's on screen are the most memorable for me in the entire film. So to be able to do that, to be able to convey that, I think takes a lot of talent, and he has that. So I'm going to go with that personal favorite as Harry Lime from The Third Man. Mike asks, do you have a lot of cinephile friends that you know personally? If yes, did the YouTube channel introduce you to any of these people? Not really. I don't have that many cinephile friends. I have, that they've come and gone. I started this channel, like I said, years ago, that I did it because I didn't have any cinephile friends. I didn't know anybody who was really knowledgeable about cinema and knew it in the way that I did. So that's kind of why I went to YouTube, because I thought, well, maybe there might be people online who might hear what I have to say and share that common interest and maybe introduce me to some stuff. But now that I've gotten older, I have met along the way people that are more cinephiles. And I do have a couple of friends that do know their films. I know a couple of people that are, you know, film majors and you know, work in the industry, film directors. So that's cool. I can talk to them about it. But really, to me, as long as you are curious and as long as you are intelligent and you have an appreciation, open-mindedness, it doesn't matter to me whether you're a cinephile or not. I have a lot of friends that are very intelligent, and they're not like big movie buffs or anything, but yet I love discussing film with them. So it's totally fine. I don't mind not having a lot of friends that aren't cinephiles, but I have met cinephiles for sure on YouTube, and I've even gotten to meet some of them in person. So that has been very exciting. I've had some very interesting interactions, some strange, some dark, and some absolutely wonderful, but I like it all. I like all of that because it's unpredictable. I'm gonna go with one more question here, and this is from Instagram, from Buried at Sea. It's fair to say that you and a good portion of your subscribers, myself included, are into, but not exclusively, into foreign films, art, literature, peyote, etc. That could be deemed pretentious or highbrow. You're very articulate and poignant in your reviews. It's fun, but it's coming from an analytic place. So my question is, do you speak about these hoity-toity, quote-unquote, subjects unabashedly in your day-to-day life in a similar manner as well, or are you more reserved and unadorned in person, and we get the unbridled version on video as a result? Kind of like releasing a pressure valve or build up cerebral steam. Side note, to get to your next 10,000 subscribers, may I suggest that you update your YouTube channel's picture? You're much prettier and approachable looking than that photo lets on. Congratulations again, dude. You're good at what you do, and you've gotten better as you've gone along. Buena suerte con todo, Margarita. Gracias. I like that picture. Actually, Gavin, the person who I said I met on YouTube, whose question I answered before, he took that picture. He's a very talented photographer. I've credited him in a lot of my Instagram posts because he's got a really great page and he does some wonderful photography. You should check him out. I like it, I guess, because you're right. It's not approachable, and a lot of people have told me I'm not approachable in real life. I get all the time, oh, I was so scared to come and talk to you. I was so afraid of you, but then I learned, oh, you're not so bad after all. All the time. I've had it my entire life. And yeah, I like the look because it's dramatic and brooding, and that's very much the kind of person that I am. It's very contrasty. It's got that Bergman kind of Carl Dreyer quality. So I personally like it. Maybe sometime I'll change it. You know, there are entirely too many pictures of me out on the internet. So, you know, I could change it at some point. But for now, I'm going to stick to it. But to answer your question, talking about the hoity-toity subjects, I totally get what you're saying. I do talk about this stuff in my day-to-day life all the time. Not with everyone, of course. Look, the majority of people don't want to talk about that kind of stuff. The majority of people want to talk about just your average everyday things. That stuff just doesn't interest me as much. So yeah, I do tend to be more reserved. I am very introverted, if that's not clear enough. But I do have a lot of friends who are very intellectually curious people. And yeah, we talk about stuff like this all the time. I talk about philosophy, I talk about film, I talk about psychedelics, I talk about all kinds of things, and I am just as comfortable talking about them outside of YouTube as I am on YouTube. But I will say, yes, of course, on YouTube, there's a bit of a difference. I am much more, well, not much more, but I am a little bit more prepared. I try to be slightly more organized and coherent. Obviously, I've put some thought into it. It's less off the cuff than, say, if I'm in a normal everyday conversation. But that's normal. You know, you're gonna kind of go on and be on YouTube or whatever and kind of as though you're giving a presentation. That's a normal thing. But yeah, I would say there isn't that much difference between how I present myself on YouTube than how I am in real life, just in terms of what I truly believe in. So, and that's something that I like. I don't feel the need. I don't really want to have some real heavy persona. I don't want to be like the nostalgia critic or Plinkett or something like that. What he does is very funny and all of that. Plinkett's videos, the half in the bag, all of that. But that's just not who I am. I'm just more kind of want to be real and honest. And it might be boring, but it's what I do. And some people seem to like it. But anyway, yeah, those are the questions that I've received in the last couple days that I liked. And I really appreciate them, so thank you so much. Thank you all for being so supportive and watching my videos over the years. And people that are new, welcome. And yeah, so to another 20,000 subscribers, maybe in like 100 years. But if you guys would like to follow me on social media and all of that, the links are below, and you can watch more videos here. And you can subscribe as always. Catch you next time.